The planet Earth had been a forgotten world in the eyes of the universe for centuries. But to the Viren, a species renowned for their advanced technology and curiosity, Earth was a new enigma waiting to be explored. They were explorers, known throughout the galaxy for their ability to uncover the secrets of lost civilizations. And Earth, with its strange signals and mysterious magnetic fields, was a puzzle they couldn't resist solving. The Viren arrived on Earth in a fleet of shimmering ships, sleek and silver against the backdrop of the blue sky. Their arrival was subtle, as they preferred to observe first, gathering data from orbit. They found a planet teeming with life, yet oddly silent, as if something had once thrived but was now gone. The Viren made their first landing in a vast, uninhabited region. Dense forests stretched out as far as the eye could see, and towering mountains stood like ancient sentinels. There were no signs of intelligent life, but the air was thick with something else, a feeling that Earth had been more than it seemed. Their mission was clear: to uncover the mysteries of this world. But what they did not know was that Earth held something far greater than they could imagine. For days, the Viren explored the planet's surface. They discovered old cities, ruins, and what seemed like ancient stone structures. But these were not the ruins of ordinary civilizations. The architecture was unlike anything the Viren had seen before. The structures were massive, built with precision that defied logic. Intricate carvings covered the stone, and symbols etched into the walls hinted at some deeper meaning. It was as though the buildings themselves were alive, whispering their stories in languages long forgotten. One particular ruin caught their attention. Deep within a dense jungle, hidden beneath layers of overgrown vegetation, lay a city older than anything the Viren had encountered in their travels. The air around it hummed with an unusual energy, and the ground felt charged, almost as if it had been waiting for someone to discover it. The Viren were not easily impressed, but the energy radiating from this place was undeniable. At the heart of the ancient city, they found something extraordinary, a colossal structure made of materials the Viren didn't recognize. It wasn't stone, nor metal, but something entirely different, something they couldn't place. The shape was perfect, symmetrical, and yet it felt organic, as if the building had grown out of the ground itself. There were no obvious entrances, no windows, and no visible doors. Yet the structure seemed to call out to them, as though it was alive and waiting to reveal its secrets. With their advanced technology, the Viren scanned the structure. At first, the readings were erratic, flashes of data they couldn't comprehend. But as they focused their energy on the building, a small section of the surface began to shift, revealing a darkened hallway that led deep into the heart of the structure. The Viren exchanged looks of wonder. They had never encountered anything like this before. Led by their leader, Malix, the team of Viren ventured inside. The hallway was eerily quiet, the air thick with an unseen presence. Strange symbols and markings lined the walls, glowing faintly with an unknown energy. The further they walked, the more they felt the weight of something ancient pressing in on them. At the end of the corridor, they reached a chamber that took their breath away. Inside, massive stone tablets lay on pedestals, covered in intricate carvings. In the center of the room was a strange device, unlike anything the Viren had ever seen. It was spherical in shape, with energy flowing around it, glowing softly in the dim light. The device seemed to hum with power, almost alive, as if it had been waiting for someone to awaken it. Nullix approached the device cautiously, his mind racing with possibilities. He had seen many advanced technologies in his travels, but this was something beyond his understanding. The device seemed to respond to his presence, its glow intensifying as he drew near. He placed his hand on its surface, and the room was suddenly filled with a low, resonating sound, a voice, ancient and otherworldly. The voice spoke in a language the Viren had never heard, but somehow Nullix understood its meaning. "Welcome, children of the stars. You have found the legacy of humanity." The words echoed through the chamber, and for a moment, the Viren stood frozen, staring at the device in disbelief. They had come here to explore, to uncover the past of a forgotten world. But what they had found was something far greater than they could ever have imagined. The ruins, the technology, the strange voice, it all pointed to one thing. Humanity had been more than just a species. They had been something extraordinary, something that had transcended the limits of the physical world. Malix felt a chill run down his spine. The voice spoke again. "You are not the first to come, but you are the first to understand." With those words, the Viren realized that they had uncovered not just the remains of a long-dead civilization, but a legacy that could change the course of the universe. The mysteries of Earth were far deeper than they had imagined, and the journey they had begun was only just starting. As they stood in the chamber, the Viren felt a sense of awe and fear wash over them. They had found something incredible, but with it came a dangerous truth. Humanity was not what they had thought it was. They had been the architects of something far more powerful, and their legacy was about to change everything. The discovery of the ancient human ruins had just begun. The discovery of the ancient structure was only the beginning. The Viren, having stumbled upon something far beyond their expectations, could not resist the urge to dig deeper into the ruins. They knew they were standing on the edge of something monumental. As the days passed, their fascination with the mysterious chamber grew. What was this place? How had it survived so long without being discovered? And most importantly, what was the true purpose of the technology hidden inside? The team of explorers, led by Malix, began their careful investigation of the room. The strange, spherical device at the center of the chamber pulsed with energy, its glow faint but constant. It seemed almost alive, as if it were waiting for the Viren to do something, to activate it in some way. But Malix was cautious. He knew that tampering with unknown technology could have dangerous consequences. So instead of rushing to use the device, he ordered his team to continue examining the rest of the room. They uncovered what looked like a series of control panels along the walls. These were unlike anything the Viren had ever seen. They were not made of metal or even any material they recognized. The panels were sleek and smooth, almost organic in appearance, like they had grown from the walls themselves. The markings on the panels shifted and shimmered, as though they were alive, responding to the presence of the Viren. One of the Viren scientists, Tora, stepped forward and began to analyze the markings on one of the panels. Her fingers hovered over the surface, and as she did, the symbols rearranged themselves. It was as if the panel could sense her touch. Suddenly, the markings on the surface transformed into a glowing sequence of shapes. The symbols were not random. They were a complex, mathematical pattern that seemed to correspond to energy frequencies. These aren't just random markings, Tora said, her voice filled with awe. This is a blueprint, a map of some kind. And it's all about energy. Manipulation of energy on a scale we've never seen before. Malix stepped closer, intrigued by the find. You mean the technology here isn't just ancient. It's advanced beyond our understanding. Tora nodded. Yes, it's as if the humans, whoever they were, mastered energy at a level far beyond our capabilities. Look at this. She tapped a spot on the panel, and a holographic image flickered to life above it. The projection was of an object that seemed to defy all known laws of physics, a machine that appeared to bend light and gravity around it. Malix stared at the image, his mind racing. This is impossible. No race we know could have built something like this. As they studied the projections, other Viren scientists began to examine the spherical device at the center of the room. They discovered that it wasn't just a simple object. It was a machine that seemed to draw power from the environment around it, harnessing energy from the very air, from the ground beneath their feet, and even from the cosmic radiation that bathed the planet. This device, Malix said, could power entire star systems, and yet it's just sitting here, dormant, in this forgotten ruin. The Viren's fascination turned to obsession. They wanted to understand how such a civilization had achieved this level of technology. As they delved further into the secrets of the ruins, they began to uncover more remarkable devices hidden within the walls. Energy shields that could withstand immense force, gravity generators that allowed objects to float with ease, and propulsion systems that could potentially outpace anything the Viren had ever built. One device in particular caught their attention, a massive stone tablet embedded in the wall. Unlike the other technology, this one was ancient, its surface worn smooth by the passage of time. As Malix approached it, a faint glow began to pulse from within the stone. He hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do, but his curiosity was too great, and he placed his hand on the glowing tablet. At once, the chamber was filled with a hum, and the walls seemed to shift. The air itself vibrated with energy, and the Viren scientists stepped back, alarmed. The stone tablet began to crack open, revealing a hidden compartment inside. Inside the compartment was a small crystalline object, glowing with an ethereal light. Melix carefully picked up the object, feeling its energy course through him. It was like nothing he had ever experienced, a sensation of power, of knowledge, of something ancient and profound. The object seemed to pulse in his hand, as if it were alive, responding to his touch. This is incredible," Malix said, his voice tinged with awe. "This crystal, it's a power source, yes, but it's also something more. It's like it contains a map, a key to understanding everything here." The Viren began to experiment with the object, using it to interact with the other devices in the room. As they did, more and more of the technology came to life. The walls shifted and opened, revealing new chambers filled with even more advanced devices. It was clear now that the humans, whoever they were, had not only mastered energy, but had created a network of technologies that could manipulate the very fabric of space and time itself. As Melix and his team explored deeper into the ruins, they realized they had uncovered something far beyond a simple lost civilization. What they had found was a legacy of knowledge and power that could change the course of the entire galaxy. And the more they learned, the more they realized that the humans who had created this technology were far from ordinary. They had been gods, or perhaps something even greater, beings who had transcended the limits of what the Viren could imagine. But the question remained, where had they gone? And why had they left behind such powerful, dangerous technology? The more the Viren uncovered, the more they realized that the answers might be more terrifying than they could have ever expected. As the Viren continued to uncover more of the ancient human ruins, the scale of their discovery began to unfold. The walls of the long-forgotten chamber seemed to pulse with hidden power, and every new piece of technology they uncovered seemed more advanced, more sophisticated than anything the Viren had ever encountered in their vast travels across the galaxy. But the real mystery was not in the technology itself. It was in the story that was being told through the ruins, a story of a civilization unlike any the Viren had imagined. The spherical device, which had once hummed with energy, had revealed more than just power sources and propulsion systems. As Melix and his team dug deeper into the heart of the ruin, they uncovered detailed carvings on the walls, symbols and patterns that seemed to tell a story. The patterns weren't just art. They were instructions, blueprints for the technology that had once powered this civilization. One of the Viren scientists, named Tora, had been studying a set of carvings for hours, trying to make sense of their meaning. She had been tracing the complex symbols, her fingers brushing against the cool stone, when she realized something startling. The symbols weren't just designs. They were a language that could be decoded. This isn't just art. These symbols are instructions, maps of some kind, Tora said, her voice trembling with excitement. They are a blueprint, a history of humanity's journey. Malix stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. A blueprint? But for what? Tora carefully translated one of the symbols. It talks about energy, about how the humans use their technology to manipulate not just power, but entire star systems. Look here, it says they didn't just create machines, they created life. harnessed energy in ways we thought impossible. The Viren were stunned. It was one thing to create machines that could bend the laws of physics, but to create life itself, that was something far beyond anything they had ever imagined. The Kargings continued to tell a story of a civilization that had reached beyond the stars, creating vast networks of interconnected systems, machines, and even sentient beings. The humans had not only mastered energy, but they had transcended the boundaries of space and time. They had unlocked secrets of the universe that even the Viren were only beginning to understand. But as the story unfolded, it became clear that humanity's rise to power had come with a price. The ruins spoke of a great event, a cataclysmic shift in the universe that had occurred when humanity pushed their technology too far. They had reached for the stars, but in doing so, they had awakened something ancient, something that had been waiting for them in the vastness of space. Tora translated the final set of symbols, her voice growing more urgent as she read. It says here that humanity's downfall came not from war or disease, but from their own ambition. They sought to ascend beyond their physical forms, to become something greater, something eternal. But in doing so, they angered the forces that govern the universe. The words echoed through the chamber, and Malix felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had not disappeared. They had transcended. They had sought to become something beyond mortal beings, and in doing so, they had triggered a cosmic event that reshaped reality itself. The team fell silent as they pondered what this could mean. If humanity had ascended to a higher state of existence, where had they gone? What had they become? And more importantly, why had they left behind such powerful and dangerous technology? There must be more to this, Malix said, his voice low. We've uncovered only a fraction of their story. These ruins, these devices, they're just the beginning. But why leave all this behind? Why not take it with you? Tora stepped back, her eyes wide with realization. Maybe they didn't leave it behind. Maybe it was meant for us to find. Maybe we're not just uncovering humanity's past. We're uncovering their legacy, their gift to the universe. As the team continued to study the ruins, they began to uncover more pieces of humanity's legacy. Holographic records, ancient scrolls, and strange crystalline objects. These objects weren't just tools. They were keys to understanding the true nature of humanity's power. Some of the devices seemed to respond to the Viren's touch, activating long-dormant systems and revealing more secrets hidden in the depths of the ruins. One of the most surprising discoveries came when Malix found a massive stone tablet in the center of the largest chamber. The tablet was covered in intricate carvings that seemed to tell a story of humanity's rise and fall, their transcendence, and the forces they had unleashed. But as Malix touched the tablet, the symbols shifted and changed, revealing a new message, one that was not written in any known language. This isn't possible, Malix whispered, staring at the shifting symbols. This is a message, a warning. Tora leaned in, her eyes wide with disbelief. It's a warning to us. It says that the forces the humans unleashed are still out there, waiting, and if we are not careful, we will awaken them again. The Viren felt a cold shiver run through them. What had they uncovered? And were they truly prepared for the consequences of their discovery? The legacy of humanity was far greater and far more dangerous than the Viren could have ever imagined. They had come to explore a forgotten world, but what they found was a legacy that could reshape the universe itself. And now, as they stood in the heart of the ruins, the Viren realized that they were not just discovering the past, they were stepping into a future that could change everything. The Viren had always prided themselves on their intelligence and advanced technology, but as they stood in the heart of the ancient human ruins, they realized that they had stumbled upon something beyond their comprehension. The warnings, the strange symbols, and the powerful devices they had uncovered hinted at something far greater than they could understand. But even with the knowledge they had gathered, the true nature of the humans' power and their ultimate fate remained unclear. Malix and his team had spent days perhaps weeks, studying the remnants of the human civilization. They had pieced together fragments of the ancient story. Humanity had once wielded unimaginable power, harnessing energy in ways that defied the laws of nature. But in their quest for greater knowledge, they had reached too far, touching forces beyond their control. In doing so, they had triggered a cataclysmic event that had reshaped the universe. The humans had transcended their physical forms, but in the process, they had set in motion a force that could not be undone. The question that lingered in Malix's mind was the same one that plagued his entire team. What happened to the humans? Had they truly ascended to a higher existence, as the ruins suggested? Had they become something beyond mortal beings, leaving behind only their technology as a legacy? Or had they been destroyed, wiped out by the very forces they had sought to control? No one knew, and the deeper they explored the ruins, the more questions they had. One evening, as the sun set behind the towering trees of the jungle, Malix stood alone at the entrance of the great chamber, looking out over the ruins. His mind raced with thoughts of the ancient humans, their incredible achievements, and their tragic end. But then something happened, something that sent a chill through his entire being. A soft hum filled the air, barely noticeable at first, like a distant whisper. It grew louder, a low, resonating sound that seemed to come from all around them. The walls of the chamber trembled, and the ground beneath their feet began to shake. Malix instinctively reached for his communicator, but before he could activate it, the hum stopped. Silence. But the silence was not comforting. It was filled with an eerie presence, like the calm before a storm. The temperature in the chamber dropped suddenly, and Malix's breath turned to mist. His heart raced as he looked around, but there was no sign of danger. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something powerful, something ancient. He turned to his team, who had also heard the strange hum. They were gathered near the spherical device at the center of the room, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. Did anyone else feel that? Tora asked, her voice shaking. Malix nodded slowly. Yes, something is happening. Just as he spoke, the air in the room seemed to crackle with energy. The spherical device, which had been dormant for so long, suddenly sprang to life. A brilliant light burst from it, flooding the room in a wave of power. The walls shimmered, and the ground beneath them seemed to pulse with life. "What is this?" one of the Vieweran scientists exclaimed, stepping back in shock. The device's glow intensified, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to shift, becoming a blur of light and shadow. Malix felt as if time itself had stretched, like the very fabric of reality was bending around them. The light from the sphere became blinding, and the Vieweran were forced to shield their eyes. Then, as quickly as it had started, the light faded. The room returned to its normal state, but something had changed. The air was still charged with energy, and a strange feeling lingered, as if the very atmosphere had been altered. Malix stepped forward cautiously, his heart still racing. He approached the spherical device, which now sat silently in the center of the room. It had stopped glowing, but the hum, that faint whisper of energy, remained. "It's like it awakened something," Malix murmured, his eyes narrowing. "But what?" Before anyone could respond, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. It wasn't coming from any visible source. It seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, from the very air. "The time has come." The words were slow, deliberate, and filled with power. The Vieweran froze in place, their minds struggling to comprehend what they were hearing. "You have awakened us." The voice continued, now clearer and filled with an overwhelming presence. "You have touched the legacy of the ancients. Now you will understand what we have left behind." The Vieweran stood frozen in fear and wonder. The voice spoke again, this time with more urgency. "You must leave. The power you have disturbed is beyond your control. The cycle is about to begin again." Malix stepped back, his thoughts racing. He looked to Tora, who was equally shaken. "Did that voice Just speak to us." Tora's eyes were wide with disbelief. It wasn't just a message. It was alive. The ground beneath them trembled once again, this time more violently. The stone walls seemed to shake, and the strange energy in the air grew stronger. The Viren knew that something was coming, something far greater than they had anticipated. "We need to leave now," Malix ordered, his voice tight with urgency. But as they turned to flee, a new sound filled the chamber. It was like the whispering hum of energy, but now it was accompanied by a low, echoing growl. The walls of the chamber began to crack, and from the deep cracks in the stone, strange, glowing tendrils of energy began to emerge. They snaked their way through the walls, writhing and pulsating like living creatures. The Viren had no choice but to retreat, their hearts pounding in fear. The power that had been dormant for so long was awakening, and with it came a terrifying force, one that could reshape the universe once again. As they fled the ruins, Melix's mind raced. What had they unleashed? The voice had warned them, but it was too late now. They had disturbed something ancient, something powerful, and they didn't fully understand the consequences of what they had awakened. The Viren had come to Earth seeking knowledge, but what they had found was far beyond anything they could have ever imagined. And now they had no choice but to face the consequences of their actions. The Viren had barely escaped the ruins before the entire structure shook violently, as though the very ground beneath their feet was coming alive. As they raced through the jungle, the strange energy that had surged through the chamber seemed to follow them, creeping along the air in waves, threatening to overwhelm them. The once quiet planet now hummed with an eerie, otherworldly vibration, and the Viren could feel it deep in their bones. The force they had awoken was more powerful than they had ever anticipated. Malix and his team gathered in a clearing not far from the ruins, their minds racing as they tried to comprehend what had just happened. They had come to explore the forgotten remnants of a long-dead civilization, but what they had uncovered was far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The voice, the energy, the strange force that seemed to pulse through the very air. It all pointed to something far beyond technology, or even ancient history. "What have we done?" Tora whispered, her voice shaking with fear. "We've awakened something," Malix said, his expression grim. "And I don't think it's going to let us go that easily." The other Viren around them were equally shaken, their faces pale as they tried to make sense of the events that had unfolded. But one thing was clear. The power they had uncovered was not simply dormant technology. It was alive. And it seemed to be aware of them. Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the earth again, and the jungle around them seemed to shift. The trees groaned, and the ground cracked open in places, releasing strange tendrils of glowing energy. The sky above began to darken, as if an unnatural storm was brewing. "It's starting again," Malix muttered. "The force from the ruins, spreading." Tora's eyes widened in realization. The energy, the power, it's not just contained in the ruins. It's linked to the entire planet. It's alive, and we've triggered something. Melix nodded slowly. "The ruins were just the beginning. We've disturbed the very fabric of this world. And now, whatever the humans left behind, it's beginning to wake up." The ground beneath them shook again, this time more violently, sending several Viren tumbling to the ground. The sky overhead seemed to crack open as lightning surged through the clouds. The tendrils of energy grew longer, snaking their way through the jungle, bending trees and rocks as they passed. "We need to leave now," Malix ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. But as they turned to flee, they heard a sound unlike anything they had ever encountered before. It was a deep rumbling growl that seemed to come from the very heart of the planet. The trees around them began to bend and sway violently, as though something large and powerful was moving beneath the surface. From the center of the clearing, a massive crack suddenly appeared in the ground. From it emerged a dark, swirling mass of energy, like a living storm, and within it there was a faint outline of something enormous, something ancient. The Viren stared in awe and terror as the massive energy began to take form. "It's here," Tora gasped. Out of the swirling energy emerged a figure, its outline hazy but unmistakable. It was humanoid in shape, but its form was like nothing the Viren had ever seen before. It was made of pure energy, its body flickering in and out of existence, as though it was constantly shifting between planes of reality. The figure's eyes burned with an unnatural light, and its presence was overwhelming, like it could reach into their very souls. The energy around the figure crackled with raw power, and it slowly turned its gaze toward the Viren. "You have disturbed the cycle," it spoke, its voice a low, rumbling echo that seemed to shake the air around them. "The time has come. You will understand what you have awakened." Melix and the others were frozen in place, unable to move or speak. The figure before them exuded an authority and power beyond comprehension. It was as if the being was not bound by the laws of the universe, existing outside the very fabric of space and time itself. "What is this?" Melix finally managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. The figure's eyes locked onto his. "We are the Keepers. We were once the humans, the creators of the power you have unleashed. But we are no longer bound by your world. We are something more." The Viren's minds raced. The Keepers. It was as though the figure was referring to something much greater than a mere civilization. They were not just the remains of a lost race, but something far more powerful, something that had transcended reality itself. Tora stepped forward, her voice shaky but filled with determination. "What do you want from us?" The Keeper's gaze turned to her, and for a moment, it felt as if time itself slowed. "You will see," it said cryptically. "The power you have awakened is both a gift and a curse. It is not meant for your kind. You have trespassed into realms beyond your understanding, and now you will face the consequences." Before Melix could react, the ground beneath them began to tremble once again. The Keeper raised one hand, and the energy around it pulsed. The sky above the Viren darkened further, and a sudden wind swept through the clearing, bending the trees and whipping through the jungle. "You must leave," the Keeper intoned, "or face the wrath of what you have disturbed." The Viren knew they had no choice but to flee. The sheer power of the being before them made it clear that they were in over their heads. They had come seeking knowledge, but what they had found was far beyond their ability to control. With a final, terrifying glance from the Keeper, the Viren turned and ran, the jungle closing in behind them as the earth continued to shake. As they retreated into the jungle, Melix's thoughts were a blur. They had unleashed something terrible, something ancient, and now they had no idea how to stop it. The Keeper had warned them, but the consequences were already unfolding, and the Viren knew that their lives would never be the same again. The legacy of the humans was no longer just a story. It was a force, alive and awakening, and they had no idea what its full power could mean. The Viren were no strangers to fear. They had encountered countless dangerous species, explored unknown worlds, and faced challenges that tested their strength and intelligence. But nothing had prepared them for what they had unleashed in the ancient ruins. The Keepers, the beings they had awakened, were beyond their understanding, and with every passing moment, the storm of energy that surrounded them seemed to grow stronger. Melix and his team had fled deep into the jungle, but the forest itself seemed to be changing. The once peaceful landscape was now alive with tension. Trees bent unnaturally, their branches twisting and reaching out, as if trying to ensnare them. The air was thick with the hum of energy, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The deeper they went, the more unsettling the world around them became. It felt as though the planet itself was waking up, and the Viren had caused it. Melix stopped for a moment, breathing heavily. His heart pounded in his chest, and his mind raced. "We can't outrun it forever," he muttered, his voice strained. "The force is too powerful." Tora, who had been silent for most of the journey, spoke up. "What if we can't stop it at all? What if this is beyond us?" The words hung in the air, and Melix felt the weight of them. The keepers had warned them. The planet, the energy, they were all connected, and they had awakened something ancient, something powerful. The Viren had no way of knowing what they were truly dealing with, and it was becoming clear that their intelligence and technology might not be enough to stop the storm they had set in motion. "We have to try," Malik said, determination hardening his voice. "We can't just let this happen." They continued their flight through the jungle, the sound of crackling energy growing louder with each step. The trees had begun to glow with an eerie light, and strange, otherworldly creatures appeared in the distance, their eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. The creatures didn't seem to be attacking, but they watched the Viren with unsettling intensity, as if they too were waiting for something to unfold. As they moved deeper into the jungle, Malik's mind kept returning to the keeper's words. "You have disturbed the cycle. You will face the consequences." What cycle? What consequences? The keeper had promised that they would understand, but so far, all they had was more confusion and fear. The group came to a clearing where the energy in the air was thick enough to feel like a tangible force. It made their skin tingle and their heads ache. Melix raised his hand, signaling for the team to stop. "We need to regroup and figure out what to do next," he said, his voice low. "We've come this far, but we can't keep running forever." They gathered in a tight circle, and Melix glanced at Torah, who had been studying the strange symbols they had uncovered in the ruins. The ancient carvings seemed to speak of a time before the keepers had transcended, a time when humanity had used their power to control not just their world, but the very fabric of the universe. "We're missing something," Torah said, her voice thoughtful. "These symbols, they're not just a history. They're a warning, yes, but there's something else, something we're not seeing." Nullix nodded. "What do you mean?" "The humans didn't just awaken power. They didn't just create life. They had control over time itself." Torah paused, letting the words sink in. They reached a point where they could bend time, manipulate it, even change its flow. That's what the keepers meant when they said we disturbed the cycle. It wasn't just the energy. It was something deeper. The realization hit Malix like a punch to the gut. "You're saying they control time?" Torah nodded. "It's the only explanation that makes sense. The power we've unleashed isn't just raw energy. It's a temporal force, a force that can manipulate time itself. And we've triggered something that was never meant to be disturbed." The weight of her words settled over the group. They weren't just facing an unstoppable force of energy. They were dealing with something that could alter reality itself. If the humans had once controlled time, then the consequences of disturbing that control could be catastrophic. Suddenly, the ground shook again, but this time, it wasn't just a tremor. The jungle around them seemed to shudder, as if the planet was reacting to their discovery. The air crackled with energy, and the sky above darkened, swirling with storm clouds that seemed unnatural. The Viren knew that they were running out of time. Literally. "Get to the shuttle," Malix ordered, his voice sharp. "We need to leave the planet before it's too late." The team rushed through the jungle, pushing aside thick vines and branches, their hearts pounding with fear. They could feel the planet's power closing in on them, and the storm in the sky above seemed to be following their every move. As they neared the shuttle, Melix glanced back one last time at the jungle. The strange energy that had surrounded them was now rising from the ground, swirling like a tornado of light and power. It was as if the planet itself was rejecting them, trying to push them away, to cleanse itself of their presence. "Move," Malik shouted, urgency filling his voice. They reached the shuttle, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. The Viren rushed inside, their breaths heavy, and Malix immediately activated the controls to take off. The shuttle lifted off from the ground, and as they ascended, they could see the jungle below, now fully alive with the energy that had been unleashed. The tendrils of power reached up toward the sky, and the storm clouds churned with unnatural force. But as the shuttle broke through the atmosphere and into space, something strange happened. For a moment, the energy seemed to freeze, as though the planet itself had paused in time. Then, with a sudden, terrifying jolt, the universe around them seemed to warp. Time itself bent and twisted as the Viren's shuttle was pulled into a rift, a tear in the fabric of reality. Malix gripped the controls as the ship was pulled through the rift, his heart racing. They had no idea where they were being taken or what they would find on the other side. All they knew was that the storm wasn't over, it was just beginning. And whatever came next, the Viren would be forced to face it head-on. The cycle had been disturbed, and the consequences were far more than they could have ever imagined. The shuttle was thrown violently through the rift, its hull shaking as if it was being torn apart by an invisible force. Malix gripped the controls, his mind racing as the stars outside the ship twisted and swirled like ribbons of light. The Viren had no idea where they were being taken, but one thing was certain: they had crossed a line, and now they were being pulled into something far beyond their understanding. "Hold on," Malix shouted, his voice tight with fear. "We're going through." Before he could finish, the rift opened wider, and the ship shot through it with a deafening roar. The walls of the shuttle seemed to warp and bend as they passed through the tear in space, and the very fabric of reality felt unstable. The crew gripped the edges of their seats, their faces pale with fear as they experienced the full force of the rift. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the turbulence stopped. The shuttle lurched forward, and everything went silent. Malix slowly exhaled, his breath shaky. "Is everyone all right?" he asked, looking around at his crew. Tora, who had been clutching the armrests, nodded. "I think so. But where are we?" Malix stared out the viewports, his eyes wide with disbelief. The universe outside was unlike anything they had seen before. The stars were dim and distant, but the space between them was filled with strange, swirling clouds of energy, glowing, shifting, and changing. It was as if they had entered a completely different part of the cosmos, a place where the laws of physics no longer applied. "This isn't our galaxy," Malix muttered. "This isn't even a place we know. We've crossed into something else." Tora looked over at the control panel. "The rift, it's not just a tear in space, it's a tear in time too. I don't think we're just in another part of space. I think we're in another time." Malix's heart sank. Time. This was what the Keepers had warned them about. They had disturbed the cycle of time, and now they were trapped in a place where time itself seemed to be fractured. "Can we get back?" Tora asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. "I don't know," Malix replied, his mind racing. "We need to figure out where we are first, then we can figure out how to get back. But we have to be careful. The energy we unleashed, it's not gone. It's still here, somewhere." The crew looked at each other, the weight of Malix's words settling over them. They had awoken the Keepers, and now they were in a place where the very flow of time had been disturbed. The storm they had caused was not over. It had only just begun. Suddenly, the shuttle's instruments beeped, signaling an incoming signal. Malix quickly adjusted the controls, trying to get a clearer reading. "Is it from the planet?" Tora asked, her voice tense. Malix shook his head. "No, it's something different. I think it's coming from ahead of us." He steered the shuttle toward the source of the signal, and soon a strange structure appeared in the distance. It was enormous, unlike anything the Viren had ever seen. It was a massive, glowing orb floating in the center of the void. Its surface was covered in strange markings, symbols that looked both familiar and completely alien at the same time. The orb pulsed with energy, its glow illuminating the surrounding space in an eerie light. This must be it," Malix whispered, "the source of the power." The shuttle moved closer, and as they approached the orb, a strange force seemed to pull at them, as though the structure was alive. The closer they got, the stronger the pull became, until Malix had to fight to keep the shuttle from being dragged in. "Is this some kind of station?" Tora asked, her voice full of wonder. "I don't know," Malix said, "but we're about to find out." They docked the shuttle near the orb, and as the airlock hissed open, the crew gathered their equipment and prepared to disembark. Malix's heart was pounding. Whatever they were about to encounter, it would be unlike anything they had ever faced. The moment they stepped outside, they were greeted by an overwhelming sense of presence. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and the ground beneath their feet felt unstable, like it was shifting between different planes of reality. The orb above them was vast, its surface pulsating with an intense light. The symbols on its surface began to glow brighter as they approached, and Malix could feel the power emanating from it, wrapping around them like a living thing. "This place, it's alive," Tora whispered. "It's not just a station or a structure. It's a part of something bigger." Suddenly, the symbols on the orb flashed, and a voice, low and resonant, spoke directly into their minds. "You have come." The voice was not like anything they had ever heard before. It was not a sound, but a presence, filling their minds with knowledge, with understanding. It was as if the voice itself was not just speaking to them, but through them, touching their very souls. "You have awakened the cycle," the voice continued. "You have disturbed the balance of time. The keepers are not what you believe. They are the guardians of the cycle. They are not the end, but the beginning." Malix's mind raced. "What does this mean?" he demanded, though he wasn't sure if the voice would answer. "You are the ones who will choose." The ground beneath them trembled as the orb's light intensified. The crew felt the pull of the energy around them, and for a moment, it felt as if they were standing on the edge of the universe itself. "The storm will come," the voice said, "and you will decide the fate of all. Will you restore the cycle, or will you let it fall?" Malix's heart pounded in his chest. They had been thrust into the heart of something far bigger than themselves. The cycle of time, the keepers, the energy, they were all connected, and now it was up to them to decide what would happen next. The storm was not just a force of nature, it was a reckoning, and the Viren would have to face the consequences of disturbing the balance of time itself. The fate of the universe now rested in their hands, and Malix knew one thing for certain: their journey was far from over.